The film, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, just may be the best film adaptation of the entire Hunger Games franchise. Hey y'all, I'm the Geek Apprentice and welcome to Hunger Games month. Normally just November, but this year I started early in October, and at this rate might extend a bit into December, but don't worry, I do have Zelda videos in the works if you are more so a fan of those. But regardless, I have other videos already up. If you wish to view them, you can click here to find a playlist of all of my Hunger Games videos. I would love to say that if you are a movie-only person and have not seen the film, that this is a spoiler-free review. I don't think it is, so just keep that in mind if you're about to watch. So here we are, finally reviewing the film, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, but this is only my first review. What do I mean by first review? Well, I've only seen the film once as of recording this video. I went to see it extremely late in the evening, Thursday, November 16th, as early in the morning, November 17th, I left with my job to go on a really long trip over the weekend, and I came back and in the midst of recovering still had work Monday and Tuesday, and it is now the day before Thanksgiving and I finally have some time to get out my thoughts. The other part of this is, yes, I've only seen it once, and I made sure that I went into the film trying to just enjoy it, trying to just take it in, not trying to take a bunch of mental notes, what was there, what wasn't there, scrutinizing every little thing. That will be for future viewings. Henceforth, this is more so just my initial thoughts, my initial overview, if you will, but in my second review, which will be much more in detail, where I will be taking notes as best I can throughout the film, actually writing them down. Again, I say as best I can, as I won't have a light on me. We'll see how well that turns out. I will be able to give a more in-depth review, if you will. To keep my thoughts as organized as possible, I am going to be using Aristotle's 6 elements of drama to kind of organize everything and keep my head a little bit more focused. For those who are unaware of what the 6 elements of drama are, these were, in Aristotle's opinion, the 6 elements of drama, but also in order from most important to least important. And that order is this: story and plot, character, thought or moral, diction, music, and spectacle. Oddly enough, I'm actually going to go backwards for this video, starting with the quote-unquote least important element of theatrics and work my way out from there. And I will be kind of changing the names of these to work more so for film than, a book or a stage play. Starting with spectacle, or I guess special effects, there was nothing that came across as bad or jarring upon my first view, so for now, it's a solid 100%, 5 out of 5 stars, 10 out of 10. Nothing stuck out as weird, nothing stuck out as not having enough or having too much. For example, I can point out something in Mockingjay Part 1 that bothered me, and that is the scene where they show us District 7 lumber, and we see the rebels. That one guy sees the Mockingjay symbol on the tree, and he whistles, and they say, if you burn with us. The peacekeepers. The look of their bullets firing, kind of cheap looking. That's just an example of how it could be bad. But at the moment, I have nothing bad to say on this. Music. Now, if you know me at all, music is extremely important. And in this case, it's soundtrack. I would personally rank music higher until I really think about what the other elements are that are above this one and realize, yeah, these are all important, but music isn't as important as something like story and character or plot. They all matter a lot, but music. Anyway, moving on. I adored the music. Speaking for James Newton Howard in his compositions, I loved everything new, and I loved where I could hear reminiscing, if you will, to previous films. Now, what about the cover music? This was also excellent. Those that were in charge of bringing the lyrics to life did a fantastic job. And I mean that both the composers as well as those that were actually singing it. They did a phenomenal job, exactly how I imagined it. Even if I didn't have like an actual melody in mind, the feel of them was right. Especially the one that Lucy Gray sings about I'm forgetting the name of it. But talking about, you can take everything away from me, but anything I had wasn't worth having in the first place. Like, just so good. So good. So music, 5 out of 5 stars as well at the current. Although I don't picture that one changing. Next is diction, and that has to do with how a character speaks and how they are presented. This one I was very worried about for a time. If you watched some of my previous reaction videos, you know I was concerned that I wasn't hearing enough of a Southern accent from Rachel Zegler as Lucy Gray, and I worried that the direction they took her was not Southern. I was wrong. They did make her Southern, very Southern, and it fit quite perfectly. That was great. Again, I'm not getting into a ton of detail right now because it's a lot of jumbled thoughts, and it was almost a whole week ago, but in general, there was no one whom the way they spoke or anything of that matter I thought was out of place, didn't seem right. Those that were supposed to have twang in their voice did. Those that were supposed to appear super pompous and put together like Snow, great. When he was unhinged, he sounded unhinged. And just so scary. Once again, just another 5 out of 5 stars from my initial thoughts, not an in-depth look. Not yet anyway. I'm hoping to see it again in a couple of days. Thought and moral are a bit more difficult to explain, but they are not story. I will say that. As far as writing a story, that is not the same as the moral underneath it. There's the plot, and then there's the moral behind everything. The thought you're supposed to take away, or they want you to take away, which could be multiple things, of course. One of my biggest concerns going into this was that Hollywood was going to wreck it with propaganda-heavy nonsense, as they have been doing so much lately. Well, I guess they always have, but especially lately. I didn't notice that. There was one thing that bothered me, but it didn't have anything to do with the story itself. It was a super behind the scenes thing, so it's not even really worth bringing up because it didn't hinder my enjoyment of the film. Basically, they stuck to the book. Thankfully, they did not make Coriolanus Snow come across as super sympathetic or empathetic, make you want to think, oh my gosh, he was just hurt as a child and that's why he is the way he is. Well, maybe some people thought that, but if you read the book, you know, no, a lot of that was natural. It just got worse based on circumstance. Now, he did come across as a little bit more sympathetic, but that wasn't because they tried to make him out to be like that. Rather, that was just simply because we weren't in his head. In the book, oh, yeah, you're in his head a lot, and you can tell, you know, for example, how possessive he is over Lucy Gray. Ugh, disgusting. All this to say, another 5 out of 5 stars. They stuck to the morale of the book and did not try to insert an agenda as far as I can tell so far, and it was well done. I'm going to be saying that a lot. Getting to the last 2 points, some of the most important stuff, at least according to Aristotle. It's just, even if I don't agree with everything Aristotle said, his 6 elements of drama just makes it easier for my unfocused mind to have at least a pathway to organization. So next is character, but I guess you could also say casting. 99% of the casting, I think, was perfect. And no, that 1% is actually not Rachel Zegler. I was worried that my views on her and things that she said and just kind of how entitled she's come across to me would hinder my view of her in the films. But actually, nah. She was perfect as Lucy Gray. Sometimes she's a little bit too theatrical, but not in terms of the film. Like, if she wasn't being Lucy Gray, I would think she was too stage play rather than good for a camera. You have to tone it back for cameras. However, yes, this is film acting, but because she was being Lucy Gray, it made more sense for the character, and her voice is fire. Absolute fire. Such a good singing voice. I know some are going to ask, who's the 1%? I need to do some careful thinking before I even dare to discuss it. And some of you may have already figured out who it is and might malign me in the comments. Go for it. It's your prerogative to do so. We have different views on things. There was just one character that I think could have been cast better. Even though they actually did very well in the role, I don't think they deserved the role. And it was kind of insulting to those who could have played the role. And now I've said more than I intended to. Great. But speaking for the 99%, and even that 1% whom I said they did a good job in the role, everyone played their roles excellently. So good. Snow, Dr. Gall, Dean Highbottom, Sejanus, all of the district people, Wovie. Oh, don't get me started on Wovie. Oh my gosh, the moment I saw her sweet little face, I was like, no, you can't do this to me. That little actress is fantastic. And her last line just... I want to go home now. That was the one time I cried. Like, I already knew what was going to happen, and I thought I might cry more, but This is such a even more in your head book. Not more than Mockingjay, but less depressing than Mockingjay. So much easier to follow along, I guess, and not feel so pulled down, I suppose. But, oh, wovey. So another 4.5 out of 5 stars. Maybe 4.8. Let's say 4.8. I'm going to be really minute about it. It's my own scaling system. Who cares? It's arbitrary. It's based on what I like. Now, if we're talking about characters being left out, I guess I should point out that I wish the Covey had been in there more. Just character-wise, I wish they had been in there more. I would have liked to have seen Snow's bunkmates in District 12. But that's kind of getting more into story and plot, so we'll move on for time's sake. 9.7 out of 10. Yeah, characters were great. And finally, story and plot. Naturally, they had to cut some things. And the two things that stuck out to me the most was a lot from part 3, which I will say I really liked that they categorized it into those 3 parts. That was actually incredibly helpful. I like that they did that, just like the books have always been separated as such. So I wish part 3, being in District 12, being a peacekeeper, had more from, the bunkmates, had more from the Covey, but I also understand why it did it. It kind of reinforced I wish this was 2 films, but for being 1 film, almost 3 hours, it was great. They did good with what they cut. The only other thing, as far as I can recall, that was a huge cut, and I kind of wish was there, was Arachne's funeral. If you read the book, you know. That scene was the first really shocking scene for me. Not the snake down Mayfair's dress. Not even when Arachne got killed. No, it was Arachne's funeral. Wow. I guess they also cut Snow singing, but unless you understand the whole backstory behind his grandmam, which I always said grandmom, even though it was an A, but they say grandmam in the film, so I guess that's what we're going with. If you understood the story behind her singing it, the anthem for Panem every morning, and more stuff about Snow's character, then maybe they should have left it in, but since you can't get into all of that stuff in his head, I was okay with that not being there. All in all, part of me still wishes there had been 2 parts, but since there wasn't, it was just 1, I think they did an excellent job with what they had to cut out. Yes, it moved fast, but even for the first part, understanding why they were mentors and everything and the reaping was happening the way it was, they did a good job of simplifying it and giving you some backstory and changing some things just so a movie-only audience could understand it. And I wasn't bothered by it because you have to, as a book reader who's willing to watch the films, you have to understand things change. You can't go into it expecting it to be immaculately like the book. It did justice to the book, okay? It did it justice. That much I can say confidently in my opinion. So as far as story and plot goes, another 10 out of 10, another 5 stars. Are there things I maybe would have done differently? Maybe, but I'm not a filmmaker. And I know that extra because I've read the book. I can't speak from a movie-only perspective because I have the book. And I would say if there were things that were confusing, okay, that stinks. Maybe they should have done better with those. But if you were a movie-only person and you found stuff confusing, I'll say this. 1, that's actually kind of exciting to me because that means they catered more to book fans. And that's pretty cool. And 2, you have no reason to complain. None. There's an entire book you can read, and it's not hard to get through. So, I mean, I've been saying that if anyone wants to come with me to see the film that hasn't read the books, that's fine. But don't you dare ask me any questions. I will not answer them. Maybe that sounds petty. It is petty. I'll be honest, it is petty. But to me, I'm like, there's an entire book that will answer your questions. Do not ask me anything. Now, if you've read the books and you're still confused, okay, then we can talk. So overall, what do I give the film? I guess, since there was a lot of 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5 stars, we'll go with 9.9 and 4 points. Am I allowed? I guess you can only do half, so 4.5 stars. But maybe the out of 10 is easier, so 9.9 out of 10. There were only a few things that kind of bothered me, but they weren't even, I said I wasn't going to go into it, so I'm not going to go into it. So there you have it. There is my initial thoughts review, having only seen the film once review. Yes, I keep saying review. There will be another. I will be making another video that goes far more in depth, with far more specifics once I've had the chance to see the film one or two more times and I'm able to take notes and kind of flesh out my thoughts a bit better. This is all initial stuff, and there's some things that I'm like, ooh, how should I phrase that? How should I talk about that? Should I talk about that at all? Is it important to my review? I don't know. And when I say my review, it's not like I'm some expert on this. This is just purely my review. Like, these are the things I would want to know if I was asking for a review. And they're extremely vague right now. And then the next one will be what I would want to know as someone about to go see this film. More in depth. It'll come. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, consider giving it a thumbs up, commenting your thoughts about the film down below, as well as hitting the subscribe button so you can join the geekdom. Very simple and very free too. But also, if you would like to support the channel in a more financial way, be very much appreciative of that. No obligation whatsoever. Everyone says that, but it's true. No obligation. I do have a Patreon and a merch store. You can check either or both of those out. There is some very convenient merch that will not be sold after the end of November. So you have like less than a week to get to that if you want to. For example, we have this beautiful mug right here. Some have, yes, this profile picture, the one I have right now, at least for Hunger Games month, logo right here, and some have a more brighter, clear chibi image. I call them chibi. I don't think that's even what it's supposed to be, but they're chibi for all intents and purposes. That's what I call them, and it's only available till the end of November. That's just how it is. Speaking of supporters, thank you so much to everyone who supports me on Patreon, especially those in my highest tier, the Hylian Knight tier, like Joking Batman, Geek Mom, Lorulian Sheep, and McToppler. Y'all are absolutely amazing. But anyway, that's all for today. Thank you for watching, and may the odds be ever in your favor.